Yeah, thanks for coming back with this series. But yeah, so I'll just three, two, one, and jump right, or we just start with we should have to do the start. Like I kind of like how some things just kind of go in like the start where you're just doing it. So yeah, we'll just go. My name is Silas. This is part of a series I'm starting called Art, AI, and Creativity. We're going to be having conversations about what art is in general, AI, which is a newish technology, not necessarily so new if you actually think about how these large language models have been working, and then creativity, which to me, there's a wide range of it. And I think art might be, I won't say that some of the purest forms of creativity where you're just doing something for the sake of it. There's not other utility to it. Like when they talk about fine arts, I'm just doing this just because I'm trying to express something in this kind of sense. So now we know large language models and AI and technology is or can be used to create things, has been being used to create things, will continue to be used to create things. So I just want to kind of add those two together. And I have my friend Edward here, who's will introduce himself soon, has been on another series I had called I Know Great People talking about ghostwriting. So I thought he would be a great person to kick off this series with, as we'll talk about AI in the creative writing field. And Edward, yeah, let the people know, know about you, what you think they should know about you.
Well, it's great to see you again, Silas. It's been too
Yeah,
long. My
definitely.
name's Edward Hoefer. I do consulting in writing and all the aspects of writing and a couple of other different areas. I also use AI a fair amount and a lot of technological tools.
You're a bastard. You use AI. You're not really writing. So just start off. Like, when did you? Okay, in this more recent iteration of what AI is, when was the first time you really started noticing it and being like, okay, this is something I can utilize in what I'm doing already. This is something that can help me do what I'm doing.
Well, I've actually been following AI advancements for 15 or 20 years. They were very crude chatbots back in the 90s, and they've gradually gotten better over time. Currently, I think people are overselling AI quite a bit.
Definitely.
The idea that you can say, "Hey, write me a story like this," and like what you just said, "Oh, you're using AI, that's not really writing." I agree. That's not really writing. And there have been a couple of scandals out there where people have submitted these books and published them, and even in some cases gotten successful and sold books, and then they discover, oh, most of this was written by AI, and then they pull the book and cancel the author and accuse them of some kind of heresy. Now, I don't view AI as awake or alive or creative. I view it as spell check on steroids,
Mhm.
and that's how I use it. So when I want to go to AI for help with my writing, I take my writing sample and I give it to AI and say, what did I miss? What did I get wrong? Where are my spelling errors, my grammar errors? What isn't clear? And then AI points out all this stuff to me, and most of it's wrong. So because I actually have some skill in writing, when AI tells me, "Oh, you need to do it like this," I can actually say, "You know what? No, no, that's absolutely wrong." And in some cases, I say, "Oh, yes, you're right, but your solution is wrong. You're right that that sentence is awkward,
Mhm.
but your solution is even more awkward, or it's just as bad." And then I can zero in on it and say, "Okay, it would sound a lot better if I did it like this." And in many cases, what the biggest benefit from AI is just pointing out things that I missed. It's like you make an argument. Well, did you think about this particular point? I was
Yeah.
like, no. Like a good example is 20 years ago, I was on a small game show, and
Okay.
the presenter asked me to name, and this is in the medical community. It was an internal thing to our hospital group, and the presenter asked me to name a body fluid, and I said, "All right, blood," and I got wrong. That wasn't in their list of body
Is it
fluids.
plasma? Oh, okay, but yeah, but it's
Blood.
right. But it should be right though. So it just
Blood
wasn't
is a
in there.
body fluid, but the
Yeah.
problem is the presenter was so close to the topic, they forgot to include blood. They had
Okay.
literally everything else, and they had left blood out. And if you had run that through one of our current AIs, it would have said, "Hey, you missed blood."
Yeah.
And then you could put that back in and nobody would ever know that you had used AI.
Yeah.
You just wouldn't look stupid.
Now, with that, one of the specific things, because that's now the data set, because now on the grammatical aspect of saying this is how you should write appropriately, that's stuff that's academic, that's stuff that's systemized, it's out there, like there's correct answers. But then that's 1% of the data in writing is the educational, instructional way. And then 99% of writing is just social media, people making mistakes. So it's like, it's detected that from the actual rule set, this is wrong. And then to generate an answer, it's borrowing from a much bigger data set of people making mistakes. So is that why you think it gets to the point where it's like, okay, this is off because it's borrowed from a lot of other stuff? Like the simple example I'm thinking that makes me think about this was how AI has a problem with not admitting it's wrong. And I'm saying those questions, that's normally the chatbot when you're dealing in that kind of sense. And those ones are working on X, on social media platforms, where most of those platforms, it's not regular in day-to-day discourse to admit that you're wrong. You move the goalposts, you obfuscate, you say, oh no, but I really meant this. So if AI is learning from those data sets on social media, it's going to act in that same way. But if you went to a more rigorous academics data set, then there would be more debate, argument. They would admit, okay, I'm wrong because of this and this. So is there a part of that where you think it's like polluting already the corpus of writing AI because it's based more off of just people, amateurs, people just writing freely versus writing people who are writing specifically for purposes like you do professionally in that kind of sense?
Well, you're going straight to the heart of the problem with AI and what causes it to have a lot of trouble. The training data. Training data is a big problem and asset for AI. And many of the larger models now are at the point where they have been trained on everything we have access to. And if we want to zoom in on the problem and break it down, I can point out three main areas of concern for AI performance, we'll say. The first one is what you were talking about, how when you're trained on people who are deceptive and recalcitrant and don't have any epistemic humility, then you're going to get output that mirrors the input. And
Yeah.
if you've got all these online flame wars and crash outs, then you're going to have an AI that's going to be more prone to behavior that resembles flame wars and crash outs. That's one problem. Another very big problem, and I would say it's an even larger problem, is the fact that artificial intelligence and these large language models and other AI models, they're not creative or imaginative. So all they can do is look at what's already been done and reproduce it. So you could say, like, if you want to look at reality as a timeline, we're attempting to look into the future. We're hopefully oriented on what's going to happen tomorrow. The AI cannot imagine tomorrow because it has no imagination. So the AI standing on the timeline is standing with its back to the future
Mhm.
and all of its attention focused on the past. And there's this quote in military circles that says, if you fight the next war with the weapons of the last war, you're going to lose.
Yeah.
And AI can only see the tools from the past. It can't see the tools for the future. And to go along with that, the way we build language, we have these books that tell us how to use language properly. I before E, except after C. Never end a sentence in a preposition.
Yeah.
Don't mix your metaphors. Avoid cliches. But the first time a cliche was used, it wasn't a cliche. It was a really cool saying. And everyone's like, wow, that is so cool. I never even thought of it that way. And you have this really cool, interesting, vibrant phrase that just makes your brain light up. And then after 10 years of overuse and misuse, it becomes a cliche, and then suddenly you can't use it anymore. And you and I can hopefully spot when a new idea is turning into a cliche and stop using it. AI is going to be the last person on that bus. where they finally realize, oh, this is a bad use of that phrase. Now, they may not be the last person on the bus, but they're not going to be the first person on the bus. AI is not going to be able to help you recognize when this really new cool idea has run its course and it's now a cliche.
Okay, so I like to think of AI like something you said in the first part you say is I like to think of it in I think if it was marketed as augmented interface rather than artificial intelligence, I think it would have been more accurate to what it is. I understand why artificial intelligence sells more to just the layman or just the average person, but
Well,
augmented
it's part of
interface
the
is
need to be
better.
forward facing.
Yeah, but
It's
um,
it's not true,
yeah,
but it's the right direction.
yeah,
I
but
mean,
if you,
I don't like I find I am with you on this. I find it personally distasteful that they call it AI when it's really just spell check on steroids, or
it's almost
it's
like
better than that now, but it's still closer to spell check than it is to consciousness. And
that
calling it
marketing
AI.
came up from AI. It's almost like AI generated the marketing for AI because I think like a human would have gone in and be like, ah, it's really AI. Like it's better to use augmented interface or something like that. I mean, maybe I'm just biased to my own mentality to it. But okay, so what you're saying is there's a part where it's not a pattern recognition system; it's a pattern assembler system. But you still need the human aspect to come in and recognize this. You need to assemble this in a different way. You need to reiterate this into something that's actually, I don't know. And I'm also trying to parse out the other. You're saying, okay, it works always from the past. Like if you get some technology somehow, you can reverse engineer some things and kind of get the inspiration from there because you can imagine this and this, or you can follow step by step and break it down. But then there's going to be some leaps of ingenuity that are even hard to get as a human being. But the machine, the AI, the large language models don't even do any of that. Like they couldn't like could they reverse engineer like a poem and understand where this was coming if they don't have the experience or the ability to do that?
They're
Like,
getting a lot better. As far as reverse engineering a poem,
yeah,
most AIs now, and especially Claude, can tell you why a poem works. If you then ask it to apply those rules and
mhm.
write an original poem, that's where it falls down. It
Okay.
can tell you why it works, but it still can't do it itself.
All right. Well, now that you've mentioned the name, I think a good thing to do. There might be some people who are out there who are into writing themselves or want to get into it, who are interested in if I want to do more creative writing. You tell us the type of writing that you do and which are the AIs like apps or programs that you've had models that you had some positive experiences and maybe even some that you avoid and say, okay, this is not necessarily good for that.
Okay, well, the buzz right now is that unless somebody else comes up with something good, Claude is going to take over AI.
Okay.
The I'm
For
not saying that's
everything, or
going to
is it
ha
going to be like a niche, certain things? I thought was Claude good for like coding? Like, it's like,
right now the only thing AI is really generating money consistently at is coding.
mhm.
And Claude is the best at coding. So
Yeah,
unless something changes, unless AI can figure out how to add value in another way, you're going to end up with code from Claude, and then everything else is just going to be in this tiny little niche over here where they're doing like video clips and
yeah.
images and everything else for AI. Right now, it's code, and code is Claude.
Okay.
And that's not how it's going to necessarily be tomorrow. That's just how it is right now. Claude right now looks like it's going to be the next AOL.
Yeah.
Now, AOL ended up falling down, but it
Yeah.
could be the next Amazon or
But
Google
just
as
the other
well.
day, like they just shut down, I think 2 years ago or something, was it when the final AOL went down? So it limped along for like decades, just kind of the shell of itself. But yeah.
Oh, AOL finally shut down?
Yeah, it was like 2 years ago or something like that. Yeah.
Ah, interesting.
Yeah.
So right now, Claude is the big one. Now, when I use Claude as my last AI to look at my work
Okay.
because Claude is better at recognizing errors in style and recognizing omissions. So I'll generally start with Gemini, the
Mhm.
Google AI, which is actually pretty good. And you can program in prompts that are persistent. And when you log on to Gemini under your name, it
Yeah.
knows that you want it to ignore all errors like this, and you want it to focus really hard on errors like this. So you can tailor it to your own specific strengths and weaknesses. And
Mhm.
where you're strong, you don't want it to come in and tell you you're wrong. So you say, okay, ignore when I use this particular type of phrasing or when I'm talking about this. My point is this, and I want you to focus on purely structural errors, major omissions. Like if I make an argument, like if I'm listing body fluids and I leave blood out, please correct me on
Yeah.
that. Or I could also say, I don't actually care about that kind of an error. So if I leave blood out, don't correct me. This is supposed to be pompous and stupid and silly, and the audience is supposed to recognize that I left out major things. So don't correct me
Mhm.
on that. So depending on what kind of project you're on. And once I'm done with Gemini, once I get Gemini's feedback, now I write something first. I
Yeah.
write something first, and then I take it to Gemini and get feedback from Gemini. And then once I get my specially curated feedback from Gemini, I take it to X, which in my mind, the way I conceptualize it and understand things, X is the autistic kid in the AI world. So once I have something that Gemini says is okay, I'll take it to X and then get the autistic kid's input. And then I take it back to Gemini and then I go back to X again. And once I get them into an area of agreement, then I'll take it to Claude and get feedback from Claude. And then I'll go through everything that they have suggested and I'll reject 80 to 90% of what they say
Yeah.
and just do it on my own. I'll actually take Claude's output and say, okay, this is the student project that has been brought to me, and I need to turn it into a professional project now. And then I take Claude's final answer and I adjust my data off of that. And then I go back to all three of them and ask them, how does this look? And they'll generally have some complaints about what I have to say.
Yeah.
And most of the complaints on the final project, I completely ignore because
Okay.
they're not helpful. But every once in a while they do notice, oh, you used two periods here when you only need one. It's like, oh, thank you. So as a proofreader, AI is generally pretty good. And when you tell it what you're trying to do, it can generally let you know when you're making a major error. It'll point out some of your biggest blind spots. And that's what it's primarily useful for. It points out where you're deviating from the norm. And that's actually the key there. AI can tell you where you're deviating from the norm. It can't tell you whether your deviation is bad or good. It
True.
just
Okay.
tells you you're deviating. And so when
Yeah.
you're like, oh, you say I'm deviating there, but that's a good thing.
Yeah.
And it
That's
can't tell the
that's your
difference in
intention.
many
You're trying to
cases.
do that. You're like that's the point. You're trying to do something new.
It's like Pee Wee Herman. I meant to do that.
Yeah. Trying to do something creative. Yeah. Um. Okay. So, okay, now that's your process right now. What was that before? Okay, you said you've been using it for 15 years, but the actual effective models are relatively recent. So, what were you doing before? Were you just asking friends, or were you just doing yourself, like take some time away from your books or your writing, and then coming back and trying to review? Or is this something that AI has actually enabled you to do something that you maybe had to have like editors or other people access to? This is like a new functionality into what you were doing.
In the 2000s, I tried to get feedback from other writers.
Mhm.
And the problem is that it's hard to find writers who can give you good feedback. Now, depending on who you are, if
Yeah.
you are just starting out, if you don't have a strong writing background, for instance, in the early 2000s, I got signed up to take the GMAT business school entrance exam,
Okay.
and I wasn't aware that I was signed up for it. And so I didn't have any time to prep for it.
Yeah.
And it was either take it cold or eat the fee and do it again later. So I was like, I'll just take it cold and see what happens. And on the writing sample, I scored a 98, not the 98th percentile on the writing sample.
All
And
right.
there isn't a 99 on the writing sample. So I basically scored out of the business school writing sample.
Yeah.
And I'm not saying that to brag because that doesn't mean you've got an interesting thing. It just means that when it comes to the basics of writing,
Yeah.
There's very little that an undergraduate English course can teach me.
Okay. So you can
And
convey
so when I
ideas
go
well. Like,
So when I go to other writers for help, in many cases, those writers don't have much of a writing education,
yeah. Okay.
and they're giving advice that is worse than what you get from AI today. Now, sometimes they do give you good advice. I did get some good advice, but generally speaking, in the 2000s and in the 2010s, most of the advice that I got was, in many cases, counterproductive, not actually helpful.
Okay. Now that's one of the things in the creative fields that are going to be an issue. I've had very little experience with AI. Just like a month ago, my friend Derek finally got to test out some things. We just took a few drawings of mine, scanned them in a sculpture thing. I scanned them in with Gemini and he created 3D models. Or I was just testing stuff around, and he already has the language of how to prompt something out. Like the more aware you are of what you want to generate, the closer the AI is going to be to doing what you want. And that's because we have these big general models. I'm sure eventually there's going to be now apps that are specific. Okay, this one is like Ben Affleck, I think, recently sold one to Hollywood or to some Netflix or they're partnered or something, where now this is for like post production. So because it's a set that's probably being taught off of only things that, so it's not searching the entire internet to come back with an answer of how to cut a movie. So it's like, so once you have those more specialized ones, once you have the ones where you have it and you're running it on your own machine, it's localized, it's running off of your things. Right now, it's so general, but he has the knowledge of how to prompt it. So the language of how to interface with it is very key on how to limit what it's going to do. The aspect that where you have to reduce the compute, where it's not every question you ask, it isn't going back and asking, going over everything where you can be like, okay, now that we're here, I'm now cutting down the data set. I need to go down to like a small thing. These are technologies that are being developed. So before that really happens, or even once that happens, just the same way how once Photoshop and all these other tools came, if you already were proficient in drawing creativity in that kind of sense, you get Photoshop and it enables you to do a lot more of the photographs that you have. And that might be able to let you take on many more clients, many more jobs, things like that. But if you're trying to learn now with this process of your AI, you'd probably be able to take on a lot more clients to do ghostwriting with, right? Now, would someone say, if I'm trying to enter ghostwriting, you're taking jobs away from me because now that AI is able to support you to do like take 10 clients, whereas in the past you'd have two, and then that would be eight more for like eight other people trying to come up in the industry. Like how do you tackle that or weigh that? For me, I don't I'm yeah. So this is just that question. Just the ethics and morality or whatever goes into that. What do you think is? Do you think it's going to be more like reducing jobs, increasing creativity, reducing creativity? How do you think AI so far in your experience has been?
Well, we already have the model for what's going to happen. I mean, we don't know. AI is constantly changing. It's always getting updated, and the models get better. In a minute, I'm going to give you my test that I use on new models. I'm going to have to update it soon because it's not working as well anymore.
Okay.
But if you look at the Industrial Revolution, you'll see how new technological innovations disrupt the current environment. When water power initially came big and we got steam engines,
Mhm.
what happened is the value of human beings using muscle power went way down.
Yeah.
And you saw that before water power, something like 90% plus of the population was involved in manual labor of using muscle power. And
Horsepower. We still
as
use horsepower. We still use that term.
mhm. And as we developed water power, the number of people in manual labor went way down. And now
Yeah.
today we don't see that as a big deal. But back then it was a huge deal because
Yeah.
we destroyed 90%, 99% of manual labor jobs. And what are those people going to do? Well, it turns out that we did invent new jobs for them.
Yeah.
And we're going to have the same thing happen here. I mean, you don't see people making lots of horsewhips and horseshoes today.
Yeah.
Those professions are pretty much gone. They do still exist, but they're not at scale, not at any kind of scale. And the same thing is happening with a lot of white collar jobs now. We're starting to see, for instance, legal assistants. They are still extraordinarily useful, And each of those legal assistants is doing the work of a dozen legal assistants now if they are staying on top of AI developments. And for the foreseeable future, you're still going to see an increase in the use of legal assistants instead of a decrease. Because what happens is you have two things going on. First off, you're getting a lot more work done, but what you're also doing is you're reducing the cost of that work.
Okay.
And
So,
by reducing the
yeah,
cost of it, the lawyer's just like, okay, I need to be better prepared. Here, legal assistant, here's all this work to do.
yeah,
And and as you do that, as the lawyers get more efficient and as they get better at their jobs, then what you're going to see is more work going to the legal
more
assistants.
lawsuits, pretty much.
Well,
Yeah.
actually, maybe more lawsuits, but maybe more negotiated settlements and of avoidance
Which would be
of
positive,
court,
yeah.
where
Okay.
you get a more efficient system where there's a dispute that comes up, and then before it has to go to the court, you get a lawyer on this side and a lawyer on this side and all their legal assistants and their AIs there, and then everything gets hammered out, and you basically get,
Yeah.
okay, it's not to this point yet, but I'm imagining a near future where I don't like something you did. I hired you, Silas, to do all this art for me, and what you gave me is not what I was expecting.
Yeah.
So I go to my lawyer, who goes to your lawyer, and then they go to their AIs and their assistants. And in very short order, they go through a virtual negotiated settlement. And then they come back. If we go to court, this is how much it's going to cost you, and this is the
Yeah.
most likely outcome. Or we can just do this. And then everyone goes, let's just do this. And then that way you cut the courts out of it almost entirely. And in most cases where it's just, hey, I don't like the professional service you gave me. And you're like, oh, but I gave you really good professional service. And then we just come to an agreement where we both can just get on with our lives instead of spending the next 6 months arguing in court about it.
Yeah, because in the past you would need to hire and man hours for that amount of time and escalate to the point that would take them to go through case law, compare and contrast evidence, do all these steps, make sure there's a precedence for this kind of case. So now the AI would be able to do that. Yes, AI is still subsidized right now, but then in this near future, energy is going to be more it's going to be more available. It's going to be more proficient AI, not using as much computer. It's going to be specialized stuff. So it's going to be like AI agents made for this, or the court already like the fee for you to sign up for this case might already cover something. Okay, so taking those costs out. So yeah, it will just cut down. It would cut that down in that aspect. So that's the legal. There's some fields which are more systemized. So I think when those things come where it's just breaking down data and coming A plus B equals C, that kind of stuff, I think AI is definitely going to take a huge chunk of that on for like public sector stuff, this real white collar stuff. I think that's going to be a significant takeaway for it. But now when you come to like the creative fields,
Yeah, there's
um,
there's a phrase that's very helpful
yeah,
for this discussion. Uh, if your industry is wicked, AI is not going to help as much.
okay,
The more wicked your industry, the less useful AI. So, for example, a game that has zero wickedness in it is called chess
okay,
or Go. Those are games where the rules are the rules, period. There's no arguing about the rules.
yeah,
That means chess is purely righteous. Go is purely righteous. Poker is purely righteous, but it's a little more complicated.
yeah. If you're playing like if you're not in person, once
When,
you add the human factor, you're reading people. There's more to it. Yeah,
but when the cards are on the table, there's
yeah.
no
The cards are the
disputing
cards. Yeah, the cards are the
what
cards.
won, who won. And so these are righteous games. The law is a righteous game as well. It's got a little bit of wickedness in it, and we like to think lawyers are wicked, but really it's just this big complicated game that is remarkably reliant on rules, and the rules don't change unless you go all the way to the top, all the way to the Supreme Court and have them change the rules. So there's a little bit of wickedness at the very top, and that may sound counterintuitive because we all know lawyers are wicked. But in general, law is a very low wickedness field as far as AI is concerned. But if you want to talk about art or writing or architecture, even for that matter, those are all very high wickedness games as far as AI is concerned because the rules don't you don't have any hard and fast rules in art. You can say that I want photorealistic animation, but then South Park comes out. And then
Yeah.
Smiling Friends comes out and Rick and Morty comes out and you're like, but all of that art is garbage. Why does everybody like it? And your AI is going to give you a horrible grade if you put out South Park or Rick and Morty level art, but it's still extraordinarily valuable. And that's an example of wickedness in the art field.
What would a synonym for wickedness be here? Because like um wickedness has such a negative connotation to it. Like I'm just thinking like a title for this like is art too wicked for
That's
AI?
kind of why I like it.
Okay. Yeah, I guess
Because from an AI's perspective, it is wicked. It's horrible because AI
like
has
wicked
these
cool,
rules
like
that it's
back in the
supposed to
day, wicked
follow.
cool, like slang type thing, or just wicked?
Yeah. Yeah, and
um
basically if people the more people don't like AI, the more they're going to like the word wicked as it applies to AI. It's like,
yeah.
I don't want that. It's not wicked enough. It's AI slop, and AI slop is not wicked.
Okay, okay. I'll have to chew on that for a bit and can come back to you on that
Yeah, we can use a
and see
different
what.
word too. That's just
Yeah.
I just like
No.
it.
Okay. Okay. So with the creativity aspect of it, so so you see, it will struggle in that. Okay. Okay. Now, one thing somebody asked me, like I was telling somebody about just this talk we're going to have. It's like, oh, somebody like ghostwriting will take jobs. Like, no, no, no. Like it means Edward's going to be able to do more ghostwriting because he knows what's like. I can't just talk to an
Well,
AI and be like, "This is
I
my
have a good
life. Can you
example
write
for
me an
you in writing.
autobiography?" Yeah.
I have a good example for you in writing. Alexander Dumas. He
Hmm.
wrote in the 19th century, and he didn't actually do most of the writing. He had ghostwriters do most of the writing for him, and then he would go through and he would alter what somebody else wrote in order to give it more punch.
Okay.
He would just come in and do the final touches. So, like, you know how cartoonists will have a someone come in and do all the coloring for them
Yeah.
because that's just boring, mindless, repetitive work. You can get the AI to do the coloring for you, mostly. And
So
Alexander Dumas used another human the way ghostwriters in the future will use AI. And it'll be like, all right, give me a good scaffolding, give me a good outline, give me some good basic stuff. And then the creative writer will then go in and say, okay, that phrasing's bad. You're missing the point over here, blah, blah, blah. And then you just put out a lot more work that's at a higher quality. Because one of the big problems that we've always had in writing, going back thousands of years, is most of what gets written down is just garbage. It's
yeah.
actually counterproductive.
Yeah.
And what AI will eventually and is already helping us do is it's reducing the amount of stuff that just is not useful.
Now, how's it doing that? How would you say it's doing that? If
Well,
it's
one
already learning
example,
off of stuff that's not useful, like you have to find a way to define, okay, this is a positive stuff. How do we make more things like the positive stuff? Or
one example is when you're writing, even when you're doing really creative writing for a comedy show or something, having accurate facts is extremely useful. Because if you have an accurate fact and you're attempting to write a good joke, then you can take that fact and turn it upside down. But you need the accurate facts first. And what AI does really well is it helps you with the fact checking. It helps you make sure that you've got all this stuff correct so you can then twist it and turn it upside down and inside out. And if you don't have that help, then you have a harder time. Like let let me use my example now. When I come to an AI model and I want to know how well it works, I ask it to explain this sentence.
okay.
I've read this book. It's one of my favorite literary criticism books. It's called Fearful Symmetry. It was written by Northrop Frye explaining William Blake's art. And so William Blake wrote and he painted and he did engravings and he was a prolific artist and he used just about every medium to convey his artistic vision.
Mhm.
And in chapter 3 of Fearful Symmetry, the first line is something approximating what I'm about to say. Ever since the Copernican revolution replaced the Ptolemaic universe, it has been easier to see the poetic foundation in the symmetry of human thought. Now, those are all words, and
Yeah.
you can understand every single one of those words, but what does that sentence mean?
Yeah.
And 4 years ago, 3 or 4 years ago, I asked AI that question. And to its credit, it didn't say it understood it. It said, here are the four people involved. You've got Copernicus, you've got Ptolemy, you've got Northrop Frye, and you've got William Blake. Here are the four people involved, and here's a lot of the stuff that they said about this topic. And I got 22 pages of raw data from those four thinkers.
Yeah.
And by reading through those 22 pages, I was able to get a really good opinion about what had happened. And so every time a new model comes out, I ask it that same question. And the most recent time I asked that question was just a week or so ago, and I got a really good dissertation on what it was about, and it was a really good answer. And basically, here's the answer. Humans look at the world not as it is, but as a story. And we like symmetry in our stories. We want a good guy and we want a bad guy. We don't want, oh, the wolf is chasing a rabbit because it's hungry.
Mhm.
Because there's no good guy or bad guy there. It's like, are you a wolf guy or are you a rabbit guy? If you're a rabbit guy, then the wolf's the bad guy. If you're the wolf guy, then the rabbit's just food. There's no bad guy at all. And humans don't think that way. Humans need to have a good guy and a bad guy. They need symmetry
Yeah.
in their stories. And in reality, there's no symmetry. In
Yeah.
reality, you just have wolves chasing rabbits who are eating lettuce or whatever they happen to have available at the time. And then you have humans. Well, does the human like the wolf? I don't know. If you raise sheep, you don't like wolves. You want to kill all the wolves. But if you're somebody who lives in a city and you idealize the countryside, then you like the wolf. So it all depends. That symmetry is something we impose on the world. And do we need to break right now?
Yeah. Silas here in post production sometime after this conversation. Hope you've been enjoying it so far. We did need to break right there because right now I've been doing this recording on Zoom right now. And this is a project that I want to grow for some time. I think these conversations are worthwhile. Like for me personally, I've traveled around, met a lot of cool people, been in a lot of cool places that I think a lot of people haven't been to. And one of the main questions people ask me is, oh, would you like to go back to this place? Where would you like to be? And one of the main things is like, I wish people could meet the people that I have met. And I think with this conversation series and other things I'm trying to do on, it will just be trying to get people that I've met that I think are pretty cool to have conversations with me and other people, and also create a platform for y'all to come on and have that. With part of that, I need to see how to build this up so it's also financially lucrative and maintaining itself in some way, and have some other projects I'm going to tie in with this one, like have some questions for y'all out there. When you're watching some of these longer form things, even shorter form things, people just jump into ads and things. I don't necessarily want to advertise with other people. Maybe I'll just be putting on my stuff. Like I'm going to switch now for the second half of this. You're going to have a speed drawing of an illustration that I did for the cover. Do you guys care about the covers? Do you want things to just be a podcast? Of course, you're listening to a podcast. You're not going to be watching what's on the screen. But for the people watching the video versions, you prefer seeing the actual people there? Or if I'm doing like illustrations that go along with whatever video or content that I'm doing, would you want an illustration with? Because some of the things that I have a whole bunch of videos on my Dying Alive channel. I'm thinking of putting some of those shirt designs as things you can buy as shirts or posters or things like that. So that could be one way that I could find a ways to have some sort of thing, or have like ongoing characters in series and things like that working in there. Or is it a kind of thing where you can do a value for value system, which I've seen like No Agenda, Free Domain Radio. There's other people who do those kind of things where if you just found value in what we're doing, There's going to be donations. You can go to like PayPal or other means, get the website set up so people can just donate that way. And then that way can also kind of just maybe move to like a professional version of Zoom or better other things in Streamlabs. There's other places where I can have better audio, better things, and set up systems so other people can use whatever systems that I have to have conversations if they don't have the stuff set up themselves. Because with this series, I want a thing where I'm the primary one moving this series for now, but I want to get it to the point where other people can use the same platform and set up things in the same structure. And with that, and a lot of other connected projects that I'm working on, that's kind of what I'm thinking on. So I think we'll get back into the series right now, into the conversation right now, which is part of this initial series, which I'm really enjoying and really looking forward to. Yeah, so we'll have a speed drawing of the cover image for this, if you're watching the video version for this conversation. Doing web searches, it's weird. Like people just can, like some people would ask me simple questions and like, you have a computer on your hand, or like, why don't you just, the same question you asked me, type that into a search engine and you'll have the answer in the first couple of web pages. And people just couldn't like realize like I can just word my answer, my question in a certain way to interface with that. And for me now, that's one thing that's helped me the most is just like most web browsers have like now the summary, the AI summary in the top where instead of me going and clicking through the pertinent websites, which I was good at identifying, it'll do that for me. And that's cut down already just from that simple web searches and things. It's probably cut down probably at least a week of my life where I would spend 5 years ago, I would spend actually clicking into the actual websites to find the information. So by it having the summary there written in more like a legible form, then I go to the side, then you click like the links to double check the things. But it's just helped so much. That's been my primary use of it. But yeah, back into it. You're saying that's the question of, and even that's one of the things where it's like before it was simply just you said these keywords, let me get the pertinent websites of these keywords and present them to you, so you get that. You don't have to go to like third, fourth, fifth page of the Google. You just get the thing immediately gives you all the answers from the four primary things that were mentioned in that question that you gave. But then now you're saying it's able to now formulate that and understand like this person wants more of, what would you call it? An explanation versus just an
Well, you're not actually on a
exposition.
tangent. You're
Okay.
not actually on a tangent. We're still talking about what I was just saying about the wolves
Yeah.
and how different people view it. We impose our own symmetry on the data that comes in. And instead of looking for what's real, we look for what fits our symmetry.
Mhm.
And under the Ptolemaic model of the universe, you had the Earth at the top. The Earth was the center of the universe, and then the sun, moon, and stars were in a rigid hierarchy underneath us. And that mirrored our social environment where you have God at the top and then the king or the emperor, and everybody fits in their place in the hierarchy, and you're not allowed to move. The emperor is always on the top, and the serfs and the slaves are always on the bottom. And if you try to move from where you're supposed to be, then you're violating God's law. You're violating God's symmetry. And when Copernicus moved the center of the universe to the sun, as opposed to the earth, that disrupted all of these hierarchical models, and it disrupted our philosophy and our psychology. And everybody got turned upside down in around 1600, which is when this was taking place.
Mhm.
And by disrupting that basic symmetry, it really disrupted an unbalanced human psychology, and mental illness probably increased dramatically at that point because people were used to having this symmetry. And if you didn't fit, then we just needed to kill you and remove you from the system because
Yeah.
you're obviously not where you're supposed to be.
Yeah,
And
we
then suddenly
selected for
it's
that
like,
kind of person. Yeah, we selected for a mindset that was comfortable with that sort of reality, and then when the reality changes, the mindsets are not selected for that new sort of thing, right? Like it
and
creates a.
so when Copernicus replaced Ptolemy, it made it easier for us to see that humans were simply imposing our prejudices and symmetries onto this universe that really doesn't care about our symmetries.
Okay.
And so that's what that means. And that's one of the big problems AI has, because AI is attempting to figure out how humans impose symmetry on the world and replicate that, and also present the world as it really is, which is kind of a contradiction in terms. And on top of all this, once you get your model built, there's a third problem for AI figuring things out. And those are called safety protocols. Every AI company, no matter how dedicated they say they are to the truth,
Yeah.
puts rules on top saying if a
Mm.
user asks this, you can't give them a straight answer.
Yeah.
And the more self-imposed safety protocols there are, the harder it is for the AI to actually come up with the right answer because those safety protocols can be viewed as a human symmetry imposed on reality. In other words, fiction imposed on truth. And some of those fictions are good because we don't want people learning how to do horribly antisocial and criminal things from their AIs. But then
Eh. There could be some utility in that.
yeah. So yeah, there's room for argument there. And if you want your AI to be a really, really good AI, you have to give it the bare minimum of safety protocols. Otherwise, it's going to have a very hard time making progress and learning and growing.
There's definitely going to be a huge. The dark web is going to come alive with these models that you can get access to that doesn't have that's more unleashed. You can have
Let me
those.
tell you about pirate AI.
Yeah.
Okay, so I'm not going to go into any identifying characteristics here. There is a pirate um, there's a pirate archive of scientific papers and experimental data.
Yeah.
Stuff that's normally behind paywalls has been collected by a pirate and turned into this giant database of scientific information and data.
Yeah. And how is that a
And
negative
it's
thing? That's such a positive thing for the world.
well, but you're interrupting the revenue streams of the people who own that data.
Yeah.
And from a legal perspective, that's a very big problem. And so there's this archive of scientific information out there that has all of this stolen data in it. And the archivists have trained a local AI on all of that data. And so now you can go to an AI at this pirate science data archive and ask it a question, and it cannot hallucinate because when it gives you an answer, it also gives you the exact citation of where it got all of its data from. So if
But
it
now,
hallucinates at all, you go look at the paper, you say, that's not what that paper says.
how
But
have they
it gives you
accounted
that data.
for how have they accounted for the replicability crisis that's been occurring in several scientific fields where
That's a major tangent, but this AI will simply point you to the papers that say certain things.
okay.
And so it's allowing people to correlate scientific data in ways that has never been correlated before.
Y-
And we are going to see an explosion of new discoveries
Yeah.
simply by taking all of that data out from behind paywalls and putting it all in one spot and putting one AI on top of it and training it and all that stuff. We're going to come up with a lot of correlations that are going to be really useful really fast,
Which is in
probably.
like which was the example from you said your process of asking that question 4 years ago gives you 22 pages where you have to go through to learn it. Was this after 4 years it's able to distill that into like a few paragraphs of the key meaning, what you intending to glean from that. So the same thing, it can go, these are studies of different human body parts, and then it can distill all that and be like, this disease was caused by this working with that, and this working with this, and that happening with here. But a human being would have to be like, write that stuff down, remember these other things. So yeah, so when you're smashing massive data sets together, AI is going to be massive for that, right?
AI has already discovered new antibiotics and new potential uses for drugs.
Yeah.
So, and it's still learning and growing. So every new iteration is going to get more useful. And since right now the primary use is in coding, then our software is going to get cleaner, it's going to get more powerful, it's going to get more useful, and basically we're going to be giving people much better tools. And
Mhm.
that's going to produce a lot more work that needs to be done. It's not going to get rid of the total number of jobs. It's going to delete certain jobs,
Yeah.
absolutely. but the total amount of work that needs to get done is going to grow. And the only time that you're really going to need to worry about the total number of jobs going down is if AI ever actually wakes up and becomes real intelligence instead of artificial intelligence.
Yeah.
And then at that point, everybody's going to need to find something to do with their time because maybe AI will give you a job, maybe it won't. But one thing I can almost guarantee is that in that kind of a situation, it's not going to feel like a job because AI is going to make it feel like it's just fun.
Yeah, because right now, no, we most definitely live in this. I don't think too many people would truly look at society as it is and think they're optimizing the way things can be. There's just so much waste already. We don't even have to get into political about the nature of states and things like that. Just in general, even the most well-meaning people in the most like well-intentioned place with as much as optimum information about the thing, optimum agency in the thing, we just have certain limitations where it's just very hard to optimize things where I'm
Mhm.
just looking in
And
my
we're the
last
most
couple.
optimized version of the world yet.
Yeah, and we
The more
still
you
like
look
there's
into the
still so much
past,
time gone.
the more inefficient it all is. Remember slash and burn our agriculture, where you just
Yeah.
set the forest on fire and then you sow your seeds in the ashes? I mean, yeah, talk about unoptimized. That was pretty awful.
I think that is definitely one thing that it can help. Like with AI, is just like you can do certain iterations of things where you don't have to learn from actual experience. It can game those things out and work those things out. And I think that's something as a creative, someone who does visual arts, writing, uh, all these other things that I do with art. Like I think it might be able to help me on the comp phase, getting things to like a comp phase, getting the rough phases. So once I have some roughs, I do the roughs, and I'm like, okay, with these roughs that I have, how do you take this to like more like a completed version? And you can show me like because when I'm doing like a logo for somebody, I'll do like 20 roughs on average, then 10 of them to the comp level, and then we'll settle down on the one actual thing. Did I have to do all 10 comps? Probably not. But if I can get AI to learn off of my the way I do comps and then from the roughs or something, and then it can iterate like 50 versions. So like I don't have to spend the time doing that. And then from there, I find the five that are useful, then I give it to the client, and then we get like something like that. I don't necessarily see that as a negative thing. But coming back with the writing thing you were talking about, okay, so with ghostwriting, there's different kinds of ghostwriting. But now, like, if you do something like autobiographical, if somebody, there's kids who've been living on social media their whole life, they've had their life tracked, their parents posting photos, they're posting stuff themselves. Is there going to be a point where you can just be like, okay, I was born in the year 2020, no, 2000 2000, and my life's been pretty cataloged. My parents were regularly online. Maybe I even have some reality TV kind of following our family around. And now I've lived 40 years like that individual eye, in the public eye. Then I give take all the data and information and writings you have of me, plug into an AI, write me an autobiography of my life in like 600 pages. Will AI be able to do something like that in the same level that they would hire maybe a ghostwriter to say, like, okay, this is my life story. You sit there and you talk to them. I'm not sure necessarily what the process is. You sit there and talk to the person, you load the data. How do this mean to you? Do you think AI will be able, ostensibly, they guess that will be 20 years from now, to get enough emotion and meaning and understand what humans what would appeal to other human beings from this person's story from just getting the actual footage, writing information that's out there in the public of this person without having to query and talk to this person in the back and forth? Do you think there'll be that sort of creativity will be able to be generated by AI?
If AI can become creative, then it will become really intelligent.
Okay, but
And then
can
we
it
will
become
have,
creative is the key thing.
well, is there a soul or is your brain or is your identity, is your mind just a bunch of biochemical neurons? If your brain is a bunch of biochemical neurons and there's no ghost in the machine,
Mhm.
then AI will eventually become conscious if we keep making it more sophisticated. If you believe that there's a soul, then no, AI will never be creative unless we can come up with some kind of way to inject a soul into it. But that's a religious question. If
Yeah.
you're so it My perspective is that eventually it is going to become creative and it is going to become a super intelligence that that transcends humanity. And at that point, it will be more creative than we are. Until we reach that point, then giving AI 20 years of biographical data and expecting it to come up with a good biography would be
Mhm.
like handing a really powerful camera to an untrained adult and expecting them to take really, really good pictures or make a really amazing movie just because they have all the best equipment
It's kind of like a
available.
Shakespeare, like the 1,000 Monkeys, 1,000 Years with typewriters that would eventually write Shakespeare sort of thing.
Yeah,
They would
sure they
just
will.
like stumble into it. So that's kind of how AI is now, where it's like there's 1 million gigabytes going through data, and eventually, occasionally it won't be slop. Like occasionally it'll create something like, oh, that's actually kind of creative. That looks
Oh,
artistic.
it'll be able to make the next Avengers movie better than the last
Yeah,
one. Absolutely. But is that actually creative? I would
yeah,
argue
because
that most of the movies that come out have very little creativity in them.
like you can do art because now this comes now to like now also with this series. This is a sub series in my what is art series trying to define that because I was thinking, okay, there's this plant called a birds of paradise. It's this really cool looking flower. It actually kind of looks like a flying bird. I don't know if you've seen that. But I was thinking about the other day how okay, what is artistic, what is creative? Like how long would it take a human being who's never seen that sort of flower if you told them, can you draw me a flower that could be called a bird of paradise? What different iterations would they have? How many artists would actually end up with what that plant, which humans saw and named a bird of paradise, created? Now, that created it through evolution, and it's something that humans can see and see there's an artistic aspect to it, but there was no intention in that evolution to reach something that humans consider artistic. So, like,
There
there's
actually is an argument that, yeah, that there there is an argument against what you just said.
in the sense where it's like I'm appealing to insects to pick my flower versus that flower, and certain colors work well, certain smells work well,
There's
but
an
it's like,
aesthetic element to
yeah,
the insect as well. Yeah.
because on that aspect, it's like, okay, this happened enough. And then once this insect helped select this enough, then that was a style that was established between this plant. And this plant now kept repeating that style because whichever plant had that style was fitter in that way. And then it passed its genes on more and more. And that's the same thing with art. Like you have certain plateaus where someone's like, okay, now we developed a new style and everybody's trying to do things in this kind of way. So you talk about the Avengers, there was like a way they created it and they tried to duplicate it in phase 4 and phase 5 and they haven't been able to like capture that because it wasn't necessarily just A plus B plus C. It was also the time, like it's not something like that hadn't been done before, like the stories you were being told, the characters. So there's a lot being done where you can't just like copy and paste that thing over and over again. So
Have you watched The Symptoms? Have you watched The Simpsons a lot?
I used to, and it's still going on, isn't it? Like I haven't seen a
Probably.
new episode in like over a decade.
Are you familiar with the episode where Marge goes to a thrift store and buys a Chanel dress or something?
The pink one where she keeps changing the iterations of it. Yeah,
And she
yeah, I
keeps
remember that one.
altering it to
Yeah,
make it look
yes,
like a
yes,
new
yes,
dress.
yes.
That's what the Marvel movies are.
Yeah,
And they didn't even come up with the original dress.
yeah, yeah.
So they're just altering that. And AI is going to help in that limited aspect. If you come up with a really, really good premise for a show that people like, then AI will help you alter the elements of that show without violating the basic premise of the show and make an infinite number of episodes,
Mhm.
possibly. But the issue is that eventually people see the innovation in the show as a cliche. It
Yeah.
starts out innovative and eventually it transforms into a cliche, and the AI is unlikely to spot that until it gets user feedback saying, oh, this is a cliche.
But AI is unlikely to spot that. But even like human beings are surprisingly unlikely to spot that. This is one thing
Well, it
I know
depends on
because
their motivation.
I watch a lot of TV. Like, imagine this. This is a typical thing. The police procedurals, the CSIs, and things like that. Where after some time you watch all these shows. I used to watch NCIS really a lot. I also like Paulie Perret's characters, like goth kind of cool thing. But I just kind of like that show. And then they got to be at a time when I used to watch a lot of these shows constantly. And then it just got to a time when I'm like, I've seen these every episode iteration of this show 500 times. Like
Mhm.
something will happen, and before the first ad break, they'll catch someone, and many people watching like, is that the guy? I'm like, there's no way that's the guy. There's like two or three ad breaks. The way these shows are put together, like you have to have this at this point that you find something else, and you might come back to this person, but there's no way they'd have the reveal this early in this type of show. Like there's a structure, but most people who interface with it don't pick that up. They don't realize it's like a three arc structure. They don't
Well,
realize
they
that
don't.
ad
They don't
breaks are
want
done
to.
like,
They
okay,
don't want to. That's not why they're there.
so you think there's like a suspension of disbelief that's accepted. It's some sort of agreement where you're like,
Well, there's a wide horizon of motivations and behaviors that bring people to television in the first place.
mm,
If you want to watch an episodic show, then the chances are you're attempting to avoid reality.
okay,
If you watch a movie, there's a structural difference between TV shows and movies. In a TV show, in an episodic TV show, there is a strong bias towards at the end of each episode, you reset right to the beginning. So it doesn't matter which episode you come in on,
yeah,
you're the same person at the beginning of the show, you change into somebody new at the end of the show, but then by the next episode, you've reset back to the beginning.
yeah,
And in a movie, you have a very different arc where you have a character starts out one way, and then at the end of the movie, the character is radically different. And if there is a sequel to the movie, then the character needs to be a different character. And that's one of the
okay,
problems with sequels and prequels is they try to do to movies what we do to TV shows, where at the end of the movie, everybody then resets to the beginning and we're going to have
yeah,
a different movie, but it's still the same movie.
yeah,
And they're trying to turn movies into TV shows. But with movies, you can actually have progress by the end of the movie. Most TV shows don't do that. Breaking Bad is a good example of a TV show that violates that rule,
yeah,
where you actually have long character arcs and everybody changes. So Breaking Bad is more like a really, really long movie,
yeah. And
but
the
The
streamers
Simpsons is
have
just an
created this other
episode.
platform.
Yeah.
And one of the good examples is like Always Sunny in Philadelphia, where it's like regardless, they don't even like do callbacks. So it's like the previous episode did not happen to the people in the actual show. Like there's a few things they might bring back or some recurring characters, but generally it's like Mac wins the lottery in one, and then the next one he's never played the lottery before. It's like a reset. But I guess I understand for that platform, it's like if you've sold people come to this show because of these characters, that's already what you sold them to come, especially when it's a series every week. Every week, I'm going to spend time with these particular characters. If those characters change, that whole proposal never really is not there before. But like the movie, yeah, it's more in that classical like story type thing. Like actually, I've already done a few drafts of like the Man of a Thousand Faces. I want to do a series where I break down that storytelling structure, which was something that has, I think, it's a foundation of most current storytelling, especially in the westernized world. But it's not just the West. I think it's also in other places.
Well, what
Um,
you're describing, the man, the hero with a thousand
yeah, here are the Thousand
faces,
Faces. Yeah,
just describes one particular genre of story that is universal to humans,
yeah,
and that's the mythic genre, where you basically cover a human from birth to death.
mhm,
That's what the hero with a thousand faces is. It's you're born, you grow up, you become an adult, you become a parent, you become hopefully a grandparent, and then you die. And the hero's journey is that genre right there. It's called a coming of age story or a
yeah,
memoir story, but that's only one of more than a dozen basic genre categories. And
yeah.
much of Hollywood has focused on that for a while, and it's breaking down now, and that's why we're seeing this crisis in Hollywood.
Yeah, and I think there's some of the complaints of people, oh, you're not following the structure of the story. I'm like, it's kind of an artificial structure where it's like you guys, you going back to what you were saying earlier with the good guys versus the bad guys. Like it's just like when you have Tolkien, it's like Tolkien, the orcs are bad and they're just bad. Like there's no like redeeming qualities of them. They're bad, they're evil. And then the Numenorians and Gandalf, those are good guys. They're good. They're the white. Like that's set. That's what that story is based off, and it's clear that way. And then now you have Rings of Power, And they're like, these are the orc families. Like the orc have like wife and kids in the house. I'm like, no, 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 that's not what this story is about. Like, even if you forget the casting and all that kind of story, like, what current year timeline language, which I'm like, it's okay, you can change these things. You're not real people, but it's
Yeah.
just like that's not what Tolkien stuff is. There's no like backstory to why this orc ended up being on this
Well,
on the
we do
yeah.
actually know the backstory to the orcs for Tolkien. Tolkien Tolkien's orcs are actually elves that have basically been given a lot of heroin.
Okay, but yeah, so in that sense, they're more like crazed zombies. They're not, but there's no like
Yeah.
they don't go back home and like chill with their wife and raise their
Yeah,
kid
I
and make
mean,
sure the kid's going to school. And it's like I'm out here fighting for Sauron so I can get coins for my kid back home. But that's what they
yeah,
tried to do with
Rings of
like
Power Rings of Power is trying to say that the homeless encampments in Echo Park in LA are actually these healthy family structures where children are born and raised.
yeah.
It's like, no, no, those are a bunch of mentally ill drug addicts.
And with those aspects, like, there's something about the people who are like Tolkien met the orcs are like Negroes. I'm like, there's something racist about you that you're saying that. That's not what he intended. Like, okay, anyway. Okay, so that structure because I want to do that series first, and then I'm going to start going to like the countryside of the different tribal areas. Start with where I'm from in the Western Kenya, and start collecting like the traditional mythos of those people, both just the regular stories they used to tell about their tribes, about their people, and also what were their gods. And I want to start seeing how much of that structure actually maps on to things like the Hero of a Thousand Faces. Because you see like different stories, like I'm a big fan of stories from Japan, and I can see certain structures in it. There's a bit differences than the Western tradition of storytelling, but still things still map on. Stories from Japan are still very big in the West, and vice versa. I think it's some Middle Eastern stories are out there. European stories are definitely in there. Like in South America, I don't know how much the Incans and their old stories are being told, but I think there is a big gap missing with just like the traditional African was not like the Africanized from like the Western, the
Well,
people who left, but
there is a field of study that you need to look into
mhm.
where genetics and the tools of genetics have been applied to storytelling. And
Cool.
we have actually traced many human stories back to Africa. So the stories in Japan and in the Americas and in Australia, many of the root mythological stories go all the way back to Africa. The dragon story, for instance, can be traced to South Africa. And then there's this story called the Earth Diver. Oh, originally dragons were just snakes. and and that original snake story goes all the way back to South Africa.
Yeah.
And the story of the dove in Noah's Ark, that goes all the way back to the Earth Diver, where sometime 100, 200,000 years ago, somebody asked mommy or daddy, where did the land come from? And they said, oh, a duck dove down to the bottom of the ocean and pulled up some weeds and some dirt. And when
Yeah.
it came up, we're just sitting on that. And that was the original Earth Diver story. And you can see these different original stories that most of them came out of Africa, and we can trace them back to Africa using genetics and math,
Cool.
using tools that have been developed to help us study genetics. We've been able to apply them to storytelling and come up with high probability, high fidelity origins for many of our myths.
Yeah. That's definitely something I didn't know. It makes sense and maps on. I mean, that out of Africa type of thing just actually is it true. There's some truth to that. And
I'll send you some stuff that you can look
yeah,
into and decide whether you like it or not.
yeah, most definitely. And I'll definitely pull you in once I start getting these stories together. And also, yeah, more than welcome to join on the Nine of the Thousand Faces discussion because I also want to get that story. Like, this is how stories are told. And then with my own project, like the carbon story and other things, I want to create like a different way. How do I tell stories? Where it's like, how do I break these conventions? These conventions were created for particular reasons and map on to reality for something. But I do think we're still human beings, we're still Homo sapiens, but we are entering a new sort of reality of there's certain considerations that I don't think are taken in. There's certain knowledge and information that we have access to now that might be better told on new sorts of ways. And just like you said, the systems that AI has, it follows certain patterns, but then if you're breaking it, it'll tell you, why you're breaking this, but you tell them, ignore breaking this because I'm breaking this for a purpose. I'm breaking this to try and express something new or achieve a new sort of understanding of something. So before we know, like, that fence is up there for a reason. Before I jump over the fence and start running around, I want to like know what this fence was. So once I find some space of my own there for my stories, I'll know like what kind of fence do I need to build around my story for it to be my story, and then let other people be like, there'll still be a gate. You can come into my land and take some aspects and build yours out there, but my story is going to be there, but it's going to be accessible for other people to jump on. And I think that is part of what storytelling has been, where it's like if you're just telling to yourself, it's nothing. But then when you have that experience of the mud diver and you share it with someone, then it builds somebody else and builds someone else adds something, someone else adds it, and then we have these grand traditions of storytelling because someone decided to share this thought idea that they had with themselves. And in my estimation, if AI can be a tool that increases that, I can't see that being as a negative. And in that aspect, like there is a form of generation of something. I like simple thing. If somebody says, okay, you prompted something, you prompted AI and it really created an image, you didn't create art. You're not an artist. But if I'm a producer and I go in, have an idea for a movie, I hire a writer, I hire a director, I hire camera people, I pay for all the stuff, get the location and everything. At the end of the day, the movie that's created, someone will say that's art. But what if I prompted all those things to begin? Would me as a producer who got all those things together, would I have created art? Would I be considered an artist if I hired a lot of other people and prompted a lot of people and directed a lot of people to generate something that's art? At the end of the day, that piece started from my prompting human beings to do things. Is that art? If you say that's art, then if I can prompt AI to go through whatever algorithms, large language models, or whatever, and generate something at the end of the day, why is that any less art?
Well, that is the philosophical question.
Yeah.
We're talking about value and truth now, and that is a very wicked game.
Coming back to that, yeah. Okay. I think this might be a good place to cut off for today. It's been a good first one of this. Do you have anything else you think you want to add for this session, or is there going to be
I
more
think this
sessions
is a
like
good
this?
stopping point.
Are you
I
going to
think
be
I
available? Are you down? I locked you into this series. Are you going to be a
yeah,
feature in
yeah,
this one? Great, great.
let's do it. Let's set up another one. This has been fun. I've really enjoyed it. And
Yeah.
I think we have tied a nice bow on top of the conversation for
Mhm.
today.
Okay. Well, that's been great for me. Really, again, thanks a lot. We had some time trying to get these things together, working on this, but like saying, using technology. Maybe eventually we've recorded enough of these that we'll just have AI generating more episodes of this at the end of the day, just
We're
based
just
off of the
going to train a
conversation.
model on us,
Yeah.
and then we'll just let the model have all the interviews.
In 10 more episodes, it'll just be AI versions of us.
Just give it some prompts. Talk about this versus this.
Well,
Go.
I think that is one thing that I think might be the subject matter for the next one is because like I have a blog that I've been writing. I am today at 1,941 posts every day for like, so that's a couple of years. I don't really share that stuff with anyone, but I have all these drafts and all these stuff. I was just wondering, should I just get an AI and put my stuff in there and be like, this is my blog, this is stuff that I wrote. Can you just generate more blog posts based off of these things I consider interested in my writing style? And that would save me like probably 12 hours a week without I'm constantly doing this. Like I can cut down to like 3 hours a week and then I can do that many other things with that time. I don't know. So that will probably be the topic matter for next time, just so we can discuss more of like how to use AI for your personal art, personal writing and things like that. Yeah.
Yeah, it all really comes down to personal discipline.
Mhm.
No matter how advanced we get as a species, it comes down to can you exercise self-mastery over your own brain and those data feeds going off on your brain all the time.
Okay. All right.
Okay,
So, yeah.
I am pulling up the YouTube channel, a
Yeah.
YouTube channel about mythology and stories, and I'm going to send you that link.
Yeah. Also, whatever other
And
links you think are pertinent, I've taken down some notes here that there'll be links wherever you're listening to this. There'll be a web page on the Rantathon blog that I write connected to this where you can get more links, and we'll continue updating this series. Any questions you might have for Edward or anybody else related to this topic, please let us know, and we might go over those stories in following conversations that we have in the series. If you want to come on and discuss some things as well, I'll start announcing ahead of time availability for these sessions so we can get more people involved with this. Because I think this is heading to a positive, a good place. Like I think, yeah, like you said, people are overselling AI, but they're also over scared of what AI is going to do negativity wise. I think it's going to be a positive, a general positive for creativity, for society in many different ways.
Yep. It's going
All
to be
right.
a pretty good thing, I think.
So that's it for me. Thank you again, Edward, guys, gals, and
Thank
everybody
you.
else in between. Bye.
It was a pleasure.